Welcome to the It Matters podcast. I'm your host, Walter Perez, and let's dive in as we help you grow your mindset and elevate your leadership. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the It Matters podcast. Thank you for joining me on another episode. I have a very special guest today, and I'm excited to chat about dreams, visions, starting new organizations, nonprofits, serving. We're going to talk a bit about everything today. And my guest is Jamieson Galloway. And we've been able to build a bit of a relationship for the last little while. I've seen him serve in a couple different capacities, including serving youth. And I love his heart, his dreams to of law enforcement, but also he has a big vision for another country that we're going to unpack today. And Jameson, I'm so excited that you were willing to agree to jump on this podcast because to me, everything matters, and what you're doing is exciting. And I'm excited to just hear more about what you're doing, but who you are and all of that. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, this is that I was, you and I talked probably a couple times about you coming on, and strategically, I think this ended up working out better because you took a trip, which we'll unpack in a little bit here. But I wanted to give our audience a little bit more insight on who you are, though. Like, what are you all about, and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you said, my name is Jamieson. I'm 23 years old from Edmonton. And I've lived my whole life here in Edmonton. No post-secondary education at all, but a lot of good work experience and life experience in kind of a compacted amount of time. After high school, I took an opportunity and moved to the country of Belize, which will be a big part of this conversation. I lived down there for 3 months. And then after coming back, then I started working in security as I have aspirations to get into law enforcement one day. I was working downtown Edmonton at a super busy location. I did that for 3.5, almost 4 years. And by the end of my time in that position, I was head of security. So I had about 80 staff that I would supervise. At a super, like I said, busy location, downtown Edmonton. And that was a lot of growth and learning opportunity for me. And then I tried something new and I went into an overreach role within downtown Edmonton with a nonprofit organization working with homeless people. A lot of the same people that I would interact with every day in security and getting to know more of their story and why they're in the situations they're in and how to kind of help them out and trauma and stuff like that. And then recently I've kind of transitioned into another new job role more along the law enforcement side of things. And it's just the start of a long career that I hope continues to grow and lots of new experiences.
So, Jameson, there's a thought that comes into my mind when I hear you explain what you're up to right now. I know when we're young, when we're little kids, we have dreams of becoming doctors, being law enforcement or whatever. Has that been a dream of yours forever? Is that something that you're like, okay, I gotta get into some sort of law enforcement type of job and I'm going to serve in that capacity? Has that been your story?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, pretty much since I can remember, that's always been the dream or the goal. And so there's been a few roadblocks along the way, honestly, but we're getting closer. And there's a few other things that are kind of on my heart to focus on. First, Belize related, and then once it works out and the right door will open, then that's kind of how I see it proceeding.
So I guess I don't want to, I just want to point out the obvious, or I want you to unpack this, but like, a lot of the times, we pursue certain things or areas in our lives because we're attracted to a specific style of work. But for you, I mean, I'm seeing a common denominator here about serving people. And I mean, whether what you do for work, what you're doing for volunteer, what you want to do in the future, it seems like a lot of service opportunities connected. Uh, could that be one of the reasons that you're so fascinated about law enforcement? Is like you just want to serve people, or what do you think?
Yeah, serving is a big thing. Being involved in a community and helping solve problems, um, trying to make things better for people who may not have anyone to kind of stand up for them in a way
Mm,
and advocate for them on their behalf.
right.
Um, so yeah, just helping out those who need it, as like kind of cheesy as that sounds, that's what it is. Um, from working downtown Edmonton in security to moving to the outreach side of things, and then the stuff that I do down in Belize, I really enjoy it.
Mm.
And so to me, it's just a natural thing. If you can do that for a job and get paid to do it, then why not?
Oh no, I love your attitude though, and I mean, we talk about leadership a lot on this podcast, and that one of the words that defines leadership is serving, and I think that if we can comprehend serving, we can understand leadership at a better level because it's all about serving other people and not them serving you. And so I love how where your heart has been completely shown in what you do here. And so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool what the journey you're on. And so I wanted to, if you're willing to share with us, because you went on a missions trip a number of years ago, and that was a life changing trip for you for many reasons. But I would love for you to unpack that because I think from that missions trip, if I'm not mistaken, is the reason that we're going to talk a bit more about Belize and what you're doing today. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. But um, is that missions trip like a very pinnacle one for you?
Yeah, for sure. So my first time in Belize was in grade 9. The school that I went to, the junior high, the grade 9 trip was like a missions trip. Every grade 9 class would go.
Mm.
And so our class, we went down to Belize, and then there's a few like service projects we have when we're down there. And so my class, we did a fence around the school. It's actually like a massive fence, one of the biggest projects they had done. And then we painted a few schools as well.
Mm.
But the perks of working at the schools, then there's kids everywhere that are in classes. So on a recess break, you get to play games with them and take a little break from the work we're doing. And I just remember before going down there, me and uh, various other classmates, we went and got some kind of like donation gifts and toys and stuff like that we could hand out.
Mm.
Um, because it was a big deal to those kids in these like remote villages in Belize. And so I remember specifically this one interaction that's kind of had a big impact on my mindset and how I view things. And essentially, as this 8-year-old kid, I gave him a yo-yo, nothing too special, but um, to him it was everything. He had never had his own toy before in his entire life.
Mm.
At 8 years old, which like think of here, like you start having Christmas and stuff like that here, where your or birthdays here, and you're getting gifts age 1, 2, 3. So to be 8 years old and not have anything of your own yet is
Mm.
kind of it's one thing to kind of consider and think about. And anyway, this kid, he played for a few days while we were at the school, and he told me how much like just how much it meant to him, and um, he showed his family, he showed other kids at the school, like other kids had toys as well. They were all super thrilled. And then one day, it was one of the last days we were there. I was watching him play with it in the field, and he saw one of the kids from my class was sitting off to the side by himself. And he went and he gave him the yo-yo, and then he just ran away and went and played with the other kids. But then he never went back for his toy. So I went up to my classmate and asked, like, why, like, are you just holding on to it, or what's the deal with the yo-yo? And he said, oh, he just gave it to me and then left. So then I went and found the kid, and I just asked him if he was going to go get his yo-yo back, or what was happening. And he said, no, like, I gave it to that kid. And I was like, oh, but like, isn't that like your only toy? Like, don't you want to keep it? Like, I can get him a yo-yo back in Edmonton when we go. So like, don't worry about it. And his response to me at 8 years old was, well, he looked like he was alone, and he looked sad, and no one deserves to be sad or alone.
Wow.
And so, like, you think of just like the idea of that, and it being an 8-year-old kid who's never had anything of his own. He's never had his own toy. He walks to school, very poor family, in like this remote village. And he has that type of mindset of like, material things don't matter. And if we can share with someone and be kind to someone to make that person happier, that's more important.
Wow.
And so that really did shift a lot of my mindset as I came back and continued out the rest of my schooling and through into high school. And from that interaction and the trip in general, I had always wanted to go back and do some more work down there of various different things that I had thought of. And when I was in grade 12, graduating high school, my younger brother was coming back from his trip. And so at the airport, the teacher said, hey, they're looking for someone to go run a youth program down there. And we thought about you. Would you be interested? At the time, I had post-secondary plans that were lined up. But later on, short time later, they ended up kind of falling through. And so then I had reached out at that time to hear more information about this opportunity. And one thing led to another. Began emailing with the people who I was going to go down there and live with and work for as a volunteer. And I quit my job, and then I moved down there at age 18.
Oh, wow.
And I was there for about three months. Around a youth program, like once a week, sometimes twice a week. We'd meet, just play like soccer, outdoor games, indoor games, just a like safe place for kids to chat. They're aged like 12, sometimes younger, to 17. And they came from various walks of life. Some of them were like street kids and either had like not really much family or much supervision, or they came from families, but just like extremely poor families. And then some of them are just came from more regular, stable homes, but all of them had a lot of challenges at young ages that at least I didn't have growing up. So it was a learning experience, just interacting with them and being able to walk through a bit of life with them.
So a couple of questions that come to mind as you're sharing that story. First, was Belize always the missions trip that the school took? Is that the location that they always went, or is that like a one-time thing?
They've always gone there. I think they went for the first time 2 or 3 classes before mine.
Yep.
And then my class, and then they've been going ever since.
Oh,
I mean, there's a break for COVID, but
right.
Now they're still going. Yeah.
So I'm wondering a little bit of what your thoughts on, because I'm going to be very honest. I've never gone on a missions trip, though I was born in that, in that part of the world, in Guatemala, as many people know. But I've never actually done a missions trip, and I do desire to do one. living in North America, we could easily get caught up in this idea like I'll give you money, I'll support a project that's overseas or in another country. But it seems to me like, I mean, you made some radical changes in your life from going the first time, then wanting to go the second time. Is there something to be said about actually taking the chance and going there physically and experiencing it for yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Because every time I've been down there, there's been different things that I'm exposed to that I see,
Mm,
um, that I kind of once I come back, or even while I'm still there, I'm trying to problem solve, um,
mm,
or think of things that could make certain situations a little bit better. How can we find people even in Belize, not even always from Canada, but in Belize who think the same way, that we can connect them to each other so that they can work together,
mm.
try and figure out how to help a certain family or a certain community or um, a group of kids or whatever. And when you're seeing it, that's a lot easier to get behind it.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
that kind of leads to some of the challenges that I face with some of the projects I'm trying to run down there, because not everyone's been down there and met the people and seen it. So,
Mm. Well, yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more, but I guess before that, I wanted to know: did you ever imagine yourself falling in love with Belize when you first went on your first missions trip? Like, did that ever cross your mind that, oh man, this is going to be such a life changing trip that I'm gonna end up probably changing some of my future plans? Did you ever think like that?
no, not really. Like, I knew it'd be impactful and I was excited to go, but that was 8 years ago now.
Mm,
And the way that Belize has impacted my life and been a huge part of it now, I I don't think I ever would have seen that 8 years ago.
mm. Well, that's pretty cool. Then it goes to show you that when you take the first step and you just kind of go with the flow for a bit and try new things, go on an experience. In your case, a missions trip. Um, I think there's just something to be said about not being stuck in your ways, and you just never know what'll impact you. Because fast forward a little bit here, and you've now gone to Belize a number of times, and there's been this vision that has been kind of it probably started when the first time you went, but it just continues to grow, and you have some big dreams for Belize, and I would love to unpack that a bit because um, before I let you go, I just have to say this. I think sometimes, when we're young, when we're kids, we get encouraged to dream, we get encouraged to have visions and ideas, and sometimes when we get older, that for whatever reason, and I think there's many reasons, but we stop dreaming, and it's such a sad thing because somebody like yourself has started to dream, and even on a small scale you've already created some impact, and now in the direction that you do want to go, you just never know the type of impact you're going to do. But I just want to point out the importance of allowing yourself to dream, and sometimes we got to dream for others because um, you use the word advocate earlier on, and that's what exactly you're doing there as a leader. You're advocating for young kids. But let's unpack that. Like, what do you see for Belize?
Um, yeah, so I'll go back to the 2020 experience.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go full detail on that trip, but I think it's important to mention that um, it was not at all what I thought it was going to be, and the things I experienced, there was a lot of negative. Um, there are a lot of negative parts from that trip, from exposure to very negative and not really honest, let's say honest people.
Mm.
So that was a big takeaway. It's just seeing. I saw two types of people on that trip, and I experienced a lot of things that I didn't plan to or didn't see happening on the trip. And although it spun in a way that um, wasn't my hope or plan originally, it taught me a lot about the country, the culture, and opened my eyes to the problems down there that you wouldn't see on a 2-week mission trip. You had to be there. You had to live in it for a little bit, experience how it impacts the people down there. And then that's kind of allowed me to figure out, okay, like these are things you have to be careful about. These are things you have to watch out for. But there's still the main problem.
Right.
Of essentially just like one of the biggest things is that the country has roughly 60% of the population is under 18.
Yeah, wow.
And there's a lot of just kids running around making decisions for themselves or being harmed by adults doing things to them or making decisions for them because there's not enough adults that have like a good head on their shoulders, we can say, to look out for all the kids that are there. And so in 2020, although the experience was very mixed, I wouldn't change anything that happened because it opened my eyes to the different problems that people face down there. And it also partnered me with Irene, who I work with to this day. And she's like we call her my Belize mom. I just wished her happy Mother's Day recently because she's had a super big impact on my life.
Oh, that's cool.
And so Irene, before I met her, she was running a feeding program that she started in 2017.
Okay.
And so after my 2020 experience, the people I was currently working for and with, it just wasn't a good fit for multiple reasons. And so I left Belize not really knowing how it would work for me to go back or how I could stay involved. But fortunately, my relationship with Irene kind of continued on through email and like Facebook Messenger. And we started communicating and calling on there and just learning about the state of her village, where it was just outside of the town I was living in and working in, which is Orange Rock, Belize.
Okay.
She lives in a small little village just outside. And that's where actually most of the youth were coming from. They were coming with Irene to church to go to that youth group. And so Irene's had this feeding program. She's established in the community. And so in 2020, once I came back and we started communicating, she wanted to grow it into something bigger than what it was. And she was doing most of the fundraising herself by just standing on the highway with a poster and a cup.
Wow.
And collecting money. And she would take that money and go buy food and then stretch that food to make it feed kids in the neighborhood or in her area that didn't have daily meals provided to them. So that's how she started it in 2017. And 2020, I kind of joined up with her from here. Because once I was back here, I began working again. And then I was kind of her sponsor from Canada. And we've been doing that now since 2020, so 4 years. She feeds roughly 40 kids a day, every day, Monday to Friday, weekends off. And she works with a local school in her village. They have 500 kids, and they pick the 40 most in-need kids that are in attendance that day, because sometimes they don't show up. So the 40 most in need that are in attendance that day, and they get to go eat for free. And Irene provides all the food she makes at her house, wakes up early, like 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, makes it all. Then she drives it to the school, dishes them all up, cleans all the dishes, goes back home. And that's how she spends a good chunk of her day. And in 2024, just in January, one of the school trips that went down, they put in a aquaponics system. So the group that takes all the schools down from this area, they're called Underdog Initiative.
Okay.
Same group that took me down in 2016. And they do these aquaponic systems. They started after my class went down, started doing them. So I didn't actually build one myself, but a lot of the other school classes, they do.
Right.
And it's kind of like a self-sustaining fish pond with attached grow beds, so that these communities can grow and produce food, and it's like pretty low maintenance. They have a maintenance guy out there that oversees all of them.
So that's pretty cool, Jamieson. Because when you were telling me about that, what I find very neat about that, it's not just being able to help this community by sending resources and money, but you're also trying to create a foundation for them to continue to sustain themselves. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so when I started working with Irene over the past few years, I had mentioned kind of Irene's story to them, and they had already crossed paths with her a few times over there. So they ended up getting in touch with her, and just this last January, they put in one of those systems there, which then allowed the feeding program that we kind of been co-running to be essentially self-sustaining in the next year or so.
Okay.
Because all the food that she gets from that system will be able to supply for her feeding program.
Right.
And so funds no longer need to go towards that. So it was essentially just me and Irene funding the feeding program together. So yeah, 40 kids a day. It's like roughly 800 meals in a month. And that for the last 4 years. And there's a lot of kids that have grown up in that village, and they now know Irene as someone that they can go to if they need anything. And so in my trips there, I went in 2022 to visit Irene. And when you're there and you're staying with her, like in her little village, all the people that come and see her throughout the day, like various kids from all ages, or just like thankful parents that are just really going through a tough time financially or with whatever problem, and they're coming to her for bits of help. It's just evident that she's clearly to be trusted and doing good work in her community.
Right.
So yeah, I was back in 2022 for a good visit, and then I just got back from a trip in April. And for the past 2 years or so, we've been kind of brainstorming and thinking through the idea of a youth shelter,
right,
like a youth home. And she's fostered kids throughout her time there. I think she's had 7 foster kids in total. And most of them are grown-up adults now. Right now, she has 3 little ones with her from age 2 to 13. And they've been with her for about 6 months. And the need for foster care, and obviously good foster care in this country, is definitely needed. So during my time there, because the foster kids she has right now, they've all gone through, up until they went into Irene's custody 6 months ago. they've been through terrible, horrendous abuse, all of them. And that was their entire life up until going to live with Irene.
Mm.
And so while I was there, we were constantly in and out of the human department, like social service office and the police station with the kids because they need to be interviewed so that they can charge the various abusers that were in their life previously. And so I started kind of connecting with the social workers and the detectives who are working with them to get a bigger understanding of what are the issues down there and some of the numbers and like what's the game plan. And so in the district of Orange Walk, roughly 15,000 people population, they have almost 100 kids, roughly 100 kids that have active cases with that department that are currently living in unsafe homes, but there's nowhere for them to go. They don't have like group homes, youth homes in that area. All of those homes are in Belize City or Belmopan, and that's like 2-hour, 3-hour drives away from Orange Walk. So when I asked, like, so how does that work? What do these kids do? They just said, like, we just do frequent home checks and make sure they're okay. And then if they're not, then they would take them to the human department office until they can find a suitable home, like countrywide. But they don't really have anywhere to place them. Wow. And then on top of that, Orange Walk has the highest number of child sexual abuse cases in the entire country. And so obviously that's super tough to kind of wrap your head around. And so as me and Irene, I kind of been prepping for moving in this direction. It was cool, actually. My old junior high that I went on the trip with, the class of this year, 2024, they were on their trip down there while I was down there. So we crossed over.
That's cool.
And I was able to just go like share my experience with that class of how Belize has affected and impacted my life. And kind of the stuff that we're doing. Me and Irene kind of partnered together, and they, on one of their last days, they got together and they collected some funds that they decided to gift to Irene to put towards whatever she wanted to put it towards. And it ended up being like pretty much the exact amount we needed to build the foundation of this youth shelter. And I told Irene, like, you can use some of this for yourself too. Like, she works hard. Her job essentially, like, she doesn't really have a job.
Right.
She just every day she works as a volunteer essentially for these kids. Her house doesn't even have windows. It's a cinder block house with just like open holes in the side of it as windows. There's not a lot of luxury in that home, and I know because that's where I lived when I was there. Just this last trip, I stayed with her instead of at the hotel.
Right.
It's definitely an adjustment, but it was much more impactful being right in the community.
For sure.
And having that experience. So she said, no, I want to build a foundation for this youth home. Like, it's just what I want to do. And so she built the foundation, went up, and it's completed now. And then we've kind of I've started reaching out to other people who may want to get involved and help finish this project.
Right.
And then how it'll work, because obviously we'd like to house the 100 kids that are in, unsafe homes, because that's horrible if you're currently living in an unsafe home.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with sexual abuse being the number one problem there. But after talking with the social workers and the police officers, it's going to operate as a emergency placement shelter.
Okay.
So it'll sleep 8 to 10 kids, depending on how it ends up finishing. And when the police extract kids, like in the middle of the night or middle of the day, like unexpected, we have to take this child because they're like, the situation is too terrible for them to stay. They'll go to Irene's house and they'll stay there for 1 to 3 weeks until a foster home can be found countrywide. And so then the social workers will work with other districts and they'll try to find a home for that kid rather than just letting that kid wait in that situation until a home pops up. The like very severe cases will get to stay at this shelter for a bit. And then because there's the aquaponic system there, part of Irene's feeding program will shift to feeding the kids in the home while they're there. And then there might still be some extra meals available for pickup. But I think once the shelter is built and complete, she won't be driving to the school every day. It'll just be kids from the school. It's close by. Actually, it's really close by. They'll just ride their bike over and pick up their lunch to go kind of thing. That's the direction it's going to head in.
Jamieson, I love how, we can come up with different excuses why we're not going to do things or why we're not going to travel or, we might have a burden in our heart that we want to accomplish, but we can come up with a million excuses, what I'm trying to say. And I love how you just have figured out a way. I mean, a word that comes up to mind is collaboration. You use the word partnership, and that's probably the more appropriate word. You've partnered up with Irene, and it just goes to show you that you didn't have to go create something new from scratch. You saw the need, and now you're meeting the need, or you're trying to at least. And by partnering up with Irene, it's just an example, a beautiful example, because you pretty much found somebody just like you, and probably has a greater heart just because she lives in Belize full time. But it is such a beautiful story that you're telling here, where you see you have a desire and a passion and a vision to do something more. You created this partnership with Irene and now a friendship that's gone for years. And it's pretty neat that from up here in North America in Edmonton, that you're able to still stay so connected and as if you're just an extension of what's happening down there, right?
Yeah. It's like I said, if 8 years ago, someone kind of told me parts of my life that would be involved now, back then, like I don't think I wouldn't believe it or think that it was true, but we've done a lot together, even thinking like 800 kids a month. And she, like, I say we, but she's there every day. She's the one doing it. I just pitch in my some extra cash when I can, and she's the one doing it all. When I was down there with her for the last 2 weeks, like, it's tiring work. We're up at 5 a.m, 6 a.m, cooking, and then you have to load it all into these bins she has. It's like, I don't know, enough rice and chicken to feed 40 kids. So then you got to carry it out to the car and then drive to the school and then unload it all. Then she does all 40 dishes. They're just like reusable dishes that she stores at the school. And so when she gets there, then she puts it all out. And then she washes all the dishes. And there's some other moms from the school, and they help out with her. But it is a lot of work. And she does that every single day, Monday to Friday, and has for the past 4 years. And during COVID, she did it just from her house. She had like to-go meals.
Wow.
For kids and families who needed it. She's done her own partnerships too within the country. There's a local bakery in Orange Walk that if they have bread that's near expiry but hasn't expired yet, and they're not going to sell it, they donate to her, and she'll go and pick up like, I don't know, 30 loaves of bread. Wow. And then she'll either go walk around the village and distribute it to the families that need it, or they come and collect it from her house. But sometimes there's disabilities, like mobility problems in some of the homes. It's a very like rural area. So she'll go and deliver it herself just because she wants to. So she's a pretty phenomenal person, and inspiring to kind of learn from.
Oh, I bet. I mean, when you think about her desire, and I mean, from what I've heard from you, where she'll put her, others people's needs before hers, and whether opening up her house, her time, her service, it's such a beautiful thing. And you made me smile because when you're talking about when you were just down there a month ago, and you're going out to the different communities of police, and you're advocating for these kids. And the word advocate has become one of my favorite words, as you know, and just because of what it stands for. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see in action when, you're working up here in Edmonton, and you have, some desires and accomplishments that you want to do, but at the same time, you're still being used while that is unfolding, and you're down there advocating for some kids who don't have a voice. And it feels like the teamwork that you guys have here with you and Irene and all the other partnerships, you're not just being a voice, you're actually you're doing much more than that. But it's just very cool to see when others stand up for those in need,
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I think is really cool, throughout my time, like wanting to give back or get back to Belize and do various projects that I've thought of, trying to get other people on board. I just got a lot of like, yeah, maybe when you're older, you could do that. Or maybe one day, when you have more money, you can do that or whatever. And like, I did understand it. I understand where people are coming from, but it was frustrating to me,
right?
Obviously, because I saw the need and wanted to do things, but just didn't know like how to kind of get the ball rolling. And so being able to partner with Irene has been a huge part of that. But so far, all the donations that we've received for this youth home has been made by people. Like, I'm the oldest person involved at 23. So there's the entire grade 9 class. So I don't know how old you're at grade 9, like 15, 14, 15, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So a bunch of them donated their money. And then there's been a few other donations of like 18, 19, 20, which is super cool to see. Like people, like these are people they're just donating what they can from their like first job or whatever job they're working. They don't have a lot of money, but they're getting behind the idea, and they're seeing like the potential impact that it could have in the future, and just kind of jumping on board with it. Even though there's no tax receipts, it's kind of like we're just going with it as it comes. And but to see like young people get on board and want to help, that's been very cool as well.
Oh, I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's just an example, right? I really dislike this idea that we've bought into sometimes in our culture, that people can be too young to make a difference. And then on the other side of that coin, people think, oh, I'm too old to do anything. And both are lies. And you're such an example at 23 years old, and the fact that you started so much younger than that, and how you've now influenced and encouraged so many more young people to make a difference. And this is the thing, and you just said it, like sometimes we want to do huge impact without wanting to do the little things. And sometimes it's just as simple as putting a care package together, giving you some cash, whatever the amount is, because when you have many people doing the same amount, it becomes a big amount, right? And so it just goes to show you that we're going to have people that are going to have their opinions and their negativities, but you're still able to impact the world no matter how old you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said.
Here, because I've known you for a little bit, and you've shared some things with me about the challenges that you have gone through, and we don't have to go through all the details of that, but I am here to say that I know that you've gone through some challenges, and so what has kept you motivated? Because through some of the things that you've gone through, you could have been like, nah, this was a one-time thing. I don't have to continue pursuing this. You could have quit, is what I'm trying to say. And you have this courage, in my opinion, and this tenacity of going, no, like I'm going to break through it. I'm going to figure it out. And regardless of who is standing in front of you, it might be, you know, you're hearing some voices from adults or older people than you, or you're facing negativity while you're in Belize, or different challenges along the way. Like, what keeps you going?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, I have faced a lot of challenges both in and out of Belize in the past few years. Um, I would say like a big part of it would be my faith for sure. Um, there's a lot of key parts of that keep me kind of like fired up about this project and this vision, and like the different avenues that uh, it might take on one day, seeing from like where I started to where I am now, and the things that we're doing in the projects we're taking on.
Right.
Me and Irene kind of as this little team. Um, that's a big thing. And then just like, yeah, there's been days like obviously things get tougher, just like it seems like it's falling apart. But there's so many kids there like that I've built relationships with from 2020, for example. One of my youth boys from 2020, his situation like drastically changed, and the foster family he was with, unfortunately, didn't stay like true to the commitment of a foster family, and they kicked him out of the house when he was 14. And so, in 2022, that was like one of the main reasons of that trip, was to go and see if I could find him and could just kind of reconnect with him or get him some help. So I did find him, but he was very unsure of who to trust and who was safe at that time, because the foster family that had him for 6 years just dumped him on the street.
Wow.
And so on this last trip, and I've kept in contact with him through various people that I know down there, that I can connect with through social media, and just say, hey, have you seen him? Like, if you see him, can you just pass on, like, like I miss him, or like wish him happy birthday when it's his birthday, or tell him like I plan on coming back in the next few years. So on this most recent trip, I saw him in town, and he's been living on the street ever since. So the odds of us seeing each other are kind of slim. And some days he goes up and works in Belize City. He's all over the country, kind of just finding odd jobs that he can get a little bit of money from.
Right.
So I saw him on this trip in town, and then we reconnected, and that was the first time we like chatted and reconnected in the 4 years. And then he would walk. He was living on like the other end of town from where I was, and he would walk like an hour and a half to come see me. And we got to spend like a good 3 days of my trip together, kind of reconnecting. And I took him. It was his 18th birthday.
That's cool.
Took him and got him a cell phone and got it set up with some data on there. So now we can communicate and text, and like if he needs anything, he can also go to Irene. Like Irene told him, if you're ever like starving, like you can come here and I'll feed you anytime. And he's gone a number of times because, again, he lives on the street and sometimes he doesn't eat for a number of days. But he's since I've even been back, he's texted me a few times and just said like, "Thank you for never giving up, or like never stop trying to connect with me or reach out to me," because he has no family. His parents are dead. His biological brother was kept by the foster family, and they cut off their ties to each other. So he's all alone in where he is, and doesn't really have anyone. And so knowing that the relationship that I've maintained with him as kind of like a mentor in his life,
That's so cool.
like, made big impact on him over the 4 years. It's little things like that that keep me motivated and fired up to just keep working towards it, because there's a lot of kids like him there. That's the reality. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality. And so to give those people and those kids like the understanding that there are people that care about them, and they're doing their best to fight for them.
Yeah.
When there's not a lot of it going on there,
right?
That's kind of for sure.
And it's pretty special, hey, Jamieson, when you hear somebody like him telling you thank you for staying connected, and when you're hearing it directly from them, wow, like that's whatever you've gone through, whatever you've done in your act of service to Belize, it just makes it worth it that much more, right? And I would love to know, like, if I mean, you've told us a lot of great things today, but like, if you had a youth or a child in front of you right now, like what do you think is the message that you would want to share with them in this process? Like, what would you like to tell
them? Just to why not dream big? Like, I think if a lot of them like tried to connect themselves with good people around them, or like just worked, like just picked a dream, picked a goal, whatever, even if it's small off the start, and work towards it. Because a lot of the kids there, that's the other thing I kind of failed to mention earlier. School is not free there. You do have to pay. So me and Irene do provide school sponsorships. She kind of selects the ones that she knows, like from her, their families are in need, and then I'll do what I can myself, or reach out to like friends and family of mine that might want to help out.
Right.
But if kids can't get an education there, then they're pretty much guaranteed just to work like random odd minimum wage jobs. Minimum wage there is $5 an hour. And so there's plenty of kids I've talked to who have said, like, I know for a fact my parents can't afford to send me through school. Right. So like, what's the point of even thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because I know what I'm going to be. And it's going to be construction worker at $5 an hour shoveling concrete. So I just think that's like such a sad reality that most of them, like, that's as far as they see it for themselves. And then that's what they end up doing. There's a lot of like really wise, knowledgeable people in Belize that did grow up like that, and they made it work, and they have like elevated themselves to different jobs, or maybe they started their own business or whatever. And they've just kind of shared their story with me. But if they could get more connected with some of the youth in their area, which a lot of them have been successful, try. But if there's just more like availability for that, so the kids without role models currently could learn from people in their own country how to do it and how to be successful. Something like just like it's just like, it's tough. Like I said, there's not a lot of good role models and good family structures where the kids are told like that they can be somebody someday. They have this like projected future, a lot of them. So if you go down there, you ask them like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not a lot of them will tell you something, anything special, like just probably construction worker,
Wow.
sub, you know.
Hmm.
I just wish that more of them would latch on to bigger ideas and then try and connect themselves with people to try and
For sure
build themselves up to be that, or to follow their dreams or their goals. But
So, like on that note, that's such a beautiful thing you just described there, and you're right, to give hope to them and to say, hey, this is not what you have in front of you is not the end all. There's more. Speaking of that, as we kind of wrap up here, like you're encouraging them to dream, but I think you're a big you're a big dreamer too, in a good way, 100% in a good way. And so, what's your vision here? Like, you're all you know you've been to Belize a number of times. You started by going first, being an example, experiencing it yourself. You've gone multiple times. You continue to give of yourself in multiple ways. Um, just maybe walk us through here quickly. Like, is part of your vision here that you'd love to start an organization, make it more formal, and be able to have more help go towards Belize? Is that correct?
yeah, for sure. If I could start an organization, um, that would be huge. It's just that right now it's just me.
Mm,
Like I work full time, uh, so and I volunteer outside of Belize work as well.
right.
Um, so I have a lot on my plate already. I don't
Hmm.
really have the time to focus further on the whole like how to build an organization part of it. So essentially, like if people came around me with like the same idea, or they wanted to help, or they had knowledge in that, obviously
Hmm.
that would be super helpful. But as of right now, like I'm making it work to the best that I can.
Right. Yeah.
Just taking it day by day.
I, and I love that, and I love that because you are doing what you can, and I love that you're keeping the vision in front of you that may be a possibility, while still doing some work, while still doing something about it in the meantime. And so I think that you're going to do some great things. You've inspired me from the type of leader you are, and you're the real deal. And I appreciate your heart in that. And um, maybe you can share with us here, like, to encourage some of the other people listening to this podcast. Like, what's one of the best leadership advice that you got, or even maybe what's the best leadership lesson you've learned right now in the last number of years while doing this? You got one?
Um, yeah, kind of probably a combination of some of my work experience and then um, stuff I'm doing in Belize is like you can be appointed a leadership position, and like technically I guess you're a leader, but you're not really a leader until you have followers, like people willing to get behind and be like, yeah, like this is something I want to get involved in, or this is someone that's like doing the right thing, and I want to work with them, alongside them. Like, how can we kind of make this bigger? Um, and so like Irene for me is a leader, seeing what Irene does in her community and how she supports people. Uh, like I want to work with her, work alongside her. Like, how can we do that? And just now, like in the last year or so, 2 years maybe, I've seen a lot more interest from people wanting to kind of help me out in
Mm,
this and get involved in various ways. So, um, and then in my work as well, um, like 80 staff was a lot. It was
mm.
a lot to kind of manage at 21 years old, um,
But you've done it. You've
but
done
yeah,
it.
it worked out. It worked out well, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
Um, and so, just like you have to treat those around you well and be doing good things in order for people to want to like follow you and
Yeah.
go into things that you're going into with the same amount of like care and
Mm,
passion. So
yeah.
just be respectful to people, and um, let them decide if they're gonna go with you on that or if they're gonna not.
Yeah.
Some people won't, and that's fine.
Yep. It's a good word. You're right. And not everybody that you want to bring along will come with you, and that doesn't have to define you. And so that's a really good word, Jamieson. So you're on the It Matters podcast, and I love to ask all my guests what matters to them right now. And I know that you shared a huge part of your life and heart with Belize. And it could be that, but maybe I want to give you an opportunity to share anything else. Is there something right now that really sticks out that matters to you?
I think I covered it. Like, obviously, it's just like it's a time of growth for me as well. Even like doing this podcast is out of my comfort zone. Like, it's not really something that I thought I'd be doing anytime soon. So just like continuing on learning about the problems down there and networking with the people who are actually living there, and then getting people here on board and kind of building a team here. They can start working together and tackling bigger issues down there and bigger projects as time goes on. And
that's cool.
Pretty much it.
Well, I appreciate you for stepping out of your comfort zone, because you have already in so many ways in your life. And I love how you continue to press on and push on. And that's why I personally think you're an amazing leader. And so I'm excited to continue to follow along and have our conversations of what you're up to, because I think you're going to impact the world, my friend. And so on that note, if somebody wanted to hear more about what you're doing, wanted to follow you, and even maybe support your initiative, what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I do have an Instagram account that's tracked. Like, I started in 2020 when I went down to Belize. It's just called Jamieson's Journey. It's kind of a lame name, but whatever. And it has like where I started in 2020, the stuff I was doing, all the way updates to now, with photos of like the various kids and like youth groups and stuff that I was involved with, and different people I've met with and maintained relationships with over the years. So you could direct message me on that, I guess.
For sure.
Or you can send me an email as well. Maybe when you post the podcast, you can just put my email in there.
I sure can. Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes so people have access to connecting with you, which I think would be a great idea. And I hope people do, because you're doing some good work, and I think this is just the beginning. And so I just want to close up here, Jamieson. I want to say thank you for being a great leader, for not letting your age be an excuse of whether you're going to do something or not. And I know you have some other dreams and other endeavors that you want to pursue, and I hope that those come alive, because I think that you're going to do amazing at them. And so thank you again for coming on the It Matters podcast and just sharing your heart. And I'm excited to talk to you in a bit on how this unfolds.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting me come on and helping push me out of my comfort zone a bit. It was good.
Well, that's awesome, man. Anytime, and I'm excited. You did a great job, and so thanks for coming on, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. That is the end to this episode, and I hope that you've been impacted by that. I know I was, even though I've heard it before, and Jamieson's doing some great work. And even if this doesn't fully interest you, there's something else that probably is inside your heart and in your mind that you're trying to pursue. And at the end of the day, if you're going to get something out of Jamieson, is like eliminate excuses and pursue it and figure out ways to do it and bring people along. So until next time, remember to dream big, grow always, and lead well. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.